Welcome back to part three of heat, movements, and flows. Sir, somewhere in discussion, we were concluding with the empirically understood movements. So, how it is about?
Every psychic movement will have an underlying neurochemical basis, some biological basis. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. One is that straight away you take up any psychic movement and you start finding out its neurochemistry. This is what they are doing in what is called uh, the interface of psychoanalysis and neurochemistry. They call it psychoneurology.
Analysis.
Yeah, or some people study it as a part of uh, neuropsychiatry. But essentially, what they do is to find out the neurochemical basis of a psychic movement. That I think will be slightly difficult in the kind of esoteric processes we are looking about. So the more likely outcome is that first we will have a conceptual understanding of these flow movements, which are internally consistent with the model in which we are trying to understand it. So the theory will be first internally consistent, and then it will go to the empirical part. Directly, if you go to the empirical part, you will end up with lot of correlations, but not getting into a coherent picture, which is what is happening right away, even at this moment also. That when they try to study uh, a process deconstructed into its small parts, and those small parts they try to study the neurochemistry of, you will have correlations and correlations and correlations, but difficult to put them together into a coherent picture. So that looks to be more the case, that we will first move to the conceptual understanding, which is internally consistent, and then move to the empirical part. But the empirical part slowly definitely will come. For example, let me give an example. Let us say we are in a situation where there is a karmic effect on a personality disorder,
Mm,
which would mean that this layer is exerting lot of effect on this layer,
mm,
either directly through the chakras, through yin and yang, through the collective unconscious, or going through the open space and going there. But the effect is there. Now the effect will be ultimately manifesting in some biochemical way, right? Now, how is that biochemical way to be understood? How does the karmic thing, if it's actually true, work out in the system? And in that working out, there will be some biochemistry involved. Otherwise, this is just a theory in the air if there is nothing in the system. So that we are yet to make out. Okay, how do we make out this thing? And therefore, the two stages likely are, first, it will just be an internally consistent thing. We will know more about each of these layers, how to understand them, how to use them, how to heal them, and so on. And then it will go to the empirical part. Same way, let us say there is some flow from the collective unconscious to the personal unconscious to the conscious, and that is causing trouble. So what is the biochemistry involved in this flow? There will be some
mm.
biochemistry. So there will be a biochemistry involved in every flow: outside in, inside out, inside outside. All those flows will have some chemistry. Transpersonal flows from the karmic layer, from universal zone, from the non-human beings, or from areas below the
Supranas.
root chakra. All those, how do you factor in terms of some biochemistry? That's something far off. Probably we are talking about a science of future, but there would be something, and at some point in time, people will understand what it is all about. One of my teachers used to say about this, that I had asked him, how will this flow in terms of the knowledge disciplines that we have? And he said all these transpersonal ideas, they will first find themselves in psychotherapy, then psychiatry, then biology, and then sociology. Ultimately, the social organization also will make use of this kind of knowledge. The final link between the micro and the macro. So this is how it will go. And the same way we can also put the same thing in terms of the constellation that we saw. That in the constellation, when we said the binding force is very high, for example,
Hmm.
if we say the binding force is very high, what does it mean in neurochemical terms? If we say the effect is very high, what does it mean in neurochemical terms? So all these arrows in action will have some biochemical correlates, which is something that is far ahead in future in terms of science. How does this refractory form work? How does the survival forces work? So at present, we are only conceptualizing in idea terms, in concept terms. The biochemical counterpart of it, right, is yet to be explored. It's far away into the future, but ultimately it will happen because logically it looks very correct and our experience corroborates it.
So somewhere neurosciences needs to come at par with this concept
Huh.
till they have all the deciphering of all the biochemicals what are involved. This doesn't seem to be possible
Yeah.
to be applied in that sense.
The worst possibility would be the same biochemicals involved in supposedly opposing movements. That will
True.
that will take us into a very different area, and then we will have to actually look at the 5-layer theory and the science of each layer to then answer those even more difficult questions.
True. Esoteric and enriching conversation. Do write on to it to us. See you all again. Namaste.
Namaste.